Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I want to know if everybody's ready for week 9 of this class. Week 9, meaning this is the last assignment that we're going to have. You know that next week is going to be your test. So if I look at my calendar, this assignment is scheduled for December the 5th. Okay. So the week after, I'm guessing the 12th will be your final. So that being said, I've given you less material and a couple of less questions to go easy on you. I don't want to add too much material for you to add for your final and studying. Okay, so just trying to be kind at the end of the year. It's a holiday season, so supposed to be kind. All right. So let me go through my usual procedure here. Share screen. Go to the material. Okay, let me minimize myself. All right. All right, let me go from the beginning. Right. So there you go. ENG 102, creative writing / poetry, week 9, again scheduled for December the 5th. Okay. All right. Okay, hopefully this top will go away. It doesn't want to go away, but that's okay. It says planning. All right. Usually disappears by now, but I don't know. So now that you've got a solid idea, which means a solid idea you're going to have for your reading, whatever you've decided to write about, whether it's, the Lakers or your girlfriend or, who knows what, political issue, you've got it in your head. But before you sit down and actually start writing, you got to not hit the keys yet, right? It says right here. If you're old school, you'd be hitting the computer keys. If you're you guys, it's the, well, mine would have been a typewriter, right? Yours is computer screen, okay? All right, so before you begin composing that great story you're gonna write, there are a number of questions you need to answer and a number of steps you need to take. So you gotta ask yourself these questions and follow these steps or techniques to get it done. I know you wanna start writing, but you want to do a good job here. So first thing you got to worry about is developing your idea. You've got your raw idea and you want to develop it and let your creativity get to work. So you ask yourself, is your idea going to be the basis for a short story or a novel? Right? You might think in your mind, oh, it's going to be a long novel. And when you get done writing, it's only for a short story. Oopsie. You've just wasted a lot of time, right? Maybe you want to write a children's book. That would be even shorter than a short story. And then a poem would even be shorter, even more. And then you got to ask yourself, who is your intended audience, right? Are you trying to write for children? Are you an older writer? You're trying to write for senior citizens? Are you a woman and trying to write for women, maybe something in feminist style? Or are you gay and trying to aim it at a gay audience? Choose your audience wisely. Next, will it be told in the first person? That means you speaking. Is the story one in which you'll be putting forward a personal message? And that's very popular in today's society. Everybody wants to put a personal message, even though if they're just a reporter, their job is really just to report the news. What happens, you're supposed to say it. You're not supposed to say, but I feel terrible about this, or I don't like it, or I would change it. You're just like a sports guy, right? You're supposed to say LeBron scored 40 points, Westbrook had 10 assists, coach got thrown out. That's it. You're not supposed to say, I think the coach stinks and the players are stupid. You're not supposed to do that, right? So you'll just be relating facts and statistics in a neutral voice in that situation, right? Next, answering these and other questions will get you ready for writing. We have a little E fact down here. Finding the right form for your story is simply to realize the most natural way of telling a story, natural way. The test of whether or not a writer has divined the natural shape of his story, means figured out, an old word, is just this. After reading it, can you imagine it differently? Or does it silence your imagination and seem to you absolute and final? So what they're trying to say is, does your version, when you try to imagine it differently, you just can't? You can only think of it one way? If that's the case, then you've probably got the correct angle. It becomes difficult when you can think of it in 5 different ways. Then it's like, oh, I haven't done my thinking here or my questions, right? And this is said by Truman Capote, a short story writer and novelist. He was very popular from the 50s through the 60s, I guess. And small man, just nondescript, but was a great writer and a suspense writer too, with detective stories, murder too. Okay, next you got to think about purpose. A piece of writing can have several goals, but it's a good idea to have one in mind when you're writing. Your goal may be to teach a skill, share an important experience, explore a specific topic or relationship, write a bedtime story that will soothe or quiet a restless child, argue a point, critique the plot of a movie, thank a policeman for helping you in a crisis, or any number of other aims. Okay, so this is really, really helpful. Again, some people just want to jump into it, and some people I've known, I have a lot of creative voices bubbling inside of me, and they're like, I'll just start writing and something will come out of it. Well, that's a time waster and a sure way to go on and on and on for nothing. So get your idea set, and then to remember it and keep you on track. And our last line here, it says, it's a good idea to write your own purpose down, like in a post-it note, one of those yellow post-it notes, and pin it up as a reminder to stay on track. If you're a writer that, a lot of people have their desk against the wall and they just put up the post-it note on the wall, so every time they sit at the computer, they'll see it. If you're a person that maybe lives in a tiny apartment or what have you, and you write in a different kind of a space, then I would recommend you put that on the refrigerator, because that's a place you go to all the time to get food, right? Okay. So let's proceed. Scope. Okay. Not talking about the mouthwash here. In chapter 11, you were advised to size up your idea. Is it big enough? Or is it too big? Again, like I said earlier, if you're talking about writing a novel and you're come up very, very, very short, it's like, oopsie. And the same thing too, too big. I can use a restaurant analogy here. Most restaurants that do thing or succeed, they do like one thing well. Okay. Let's say a couple of dishes of Italian food. Like my Korean students will tell me the same thing. I'll say, oh, there's this new Korean restaurant and they do, this and this well. And they're like, no, no, no. They have to do one thing really well. It has to be like a tteokbokki place or a mandu place. If they say they can only, if they're doing two and three things very well, that's not true. Maybe one thing is good. So it's difficult when you try to open a place and say, we have a huge menu and we'll do, all these dishes for you. You're going to have a lot of complaints. So be careful on the too big uh, side of the scope, okay? So at this point, you can think about it in more detail. For example, you may have refined your idea from covering all of a famous local politician's life to just the years that he's been in office. See, there you go. Let's say, just to let you know, let's say this is talking about a local politician. Biden has been in politics and more or less running for president, I think, for 40 years, right? Well, that's a hell of a long time to try to cover his life, right? Maybe on the too big side. So probably it'd be better more recently and right about when he became vice president for Obama, and then, you know, when he won the presidency. So you still got a lot of info there, right? And it's the more recent one. It's going to be tough for you to gather all the information or write something good for his whole political life, going back to the late 70s, early 80s. Okay. But as you shape your idea now, you may want to narrow it even further. And that's usually what happens. You narrow it and more and more. It doesn't go the opposite way where it gets bigger and bigger. Instead of undertaking a book, you may want to start exploring the topic with an article about just one of the many ways in which the politician improved life in your community. Okay, that's a good way too. If the article turns out well, you can expand on it with another article, perhaps a book. So later, right? This is good. This is popular. People want more. Good. I'll write another article. Or now I have the confidence to write a book on the subject. Or you may decide that you're ready now to undertake a big project and that concentrating on the politician's entire term in office is the best approach. Okay, it's up to you. Try to suit the breadth, which means the width of the project, to both the material and to your time and interest. Now, that's a rare thing, but it does happen, believe it or not. I guess like relationships. The guy has this big idea and he wants to write this long historical piece and he's got to gather all this information. And then about halfway through, because it's taking forever, right? The writer loses interest. And I'm spending too much time on this. I think I'll write something else. So that can happen and does happen. So just to let you know that. And everybody sits there and says, darn it, I'm going to write this thing about the last 300 years if it kills me, right? So different kinds of people with different kinds of strengths and weaknesses, desires. Next is format. You may have gone into a project with the idea of writing in a particular genre, for example, a poem or a play. But thinking about format now may produce a different approach. A crazy time from your teen years might be the basis of an exciting memoirs, biography, as you originally thought. But it could also be the topic of a very funny poem. So imagine that. You want to write this big thing about your teenage years. Technically, that could be from 13 through 19, 6 to 7 years. But then you, as I say, it goes down, you shrink it, and it becomes a very funny poem. Maybe a very long poem, but Obviously, not as long a writing as the person thought in writing the memoir. Another effect. Don't fall into the trap of labeling yourself. Just because you start with poetry doesn't mean you're only a poet. Be willing to at least try other forms of writing, short stories, personal essays, and articles. You may find that you enjoy and are good at many different things. So, what they're trying to say here, this is more for a little more seasoned of a writer, one with a little more experience. Let's say they've already written 3, 4, 5 poems. So they feel very comfortable in writing poems and maybe they've had a little success. So let's say a lot of writers in that situation, then they think, just a poet. And they get scared and kind of nervous in not trying to write a short story or a personal essay or an article, right? So it says here, just try them and you might find out that you actually enjoy doing it. Put the effort out there and you also might be good at it. I can remember uh, being a kid and stand-up comedians, gag men, were respected for their ability to do what they do, but a lot of people didn't think that they could handle the job as far as being an actor. And fortunately, we found out through the years that a lot of stand-up comedians are excellent actors. Uh, One, for example, was a fellow that just passed away a few years ago, Robin Williams. He started his career as a stand-up, and then had a TV gag show, and then started a successful movie career. So people like you, young people, might think, oh, he's just been a movie star. That's it. Well, no, he went up the ladder, gag man to TV, then to movies. So try things. You might like them and you might have some talent. Next is audience. Who you're writing for can affect the words you use. Definitely. For example, if you're writing a nonfiction book for toddlers, those are kids that cannot walk yet, goo, 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 you'll need to know and use vocabulary and concepts so they can understand. Okay, toddlers actually used to be, okay, I guess they can't walk, they can speak a little bit. So they have a basic grasp of the language, so you cannot do anything for sixth graders or middle school. They won't get it. You have to stay with them. See the dog run, see the cat meow, things like that. So you have to pick your uh, audience. Likewise, if you're moving along, fears are their favorite things, their weaknesses, and the way they react emotionally to different situations. These will make them seem real, okay, and fascinating to read about, okay? Let's see if I think I skip. Yeah, okay, right. So again, when you choose your audience, you want to make things that there are exciting for them. Like a lot of, let's say, teenagers, they let's say teenage girls, they like to read like these little love stories and romance things. They do. So boys want to read about action and sports and wild stuff, maybe violence. And older people want to read about whatever. So make sure you, as it says here, you pick their favorite things, their weaknesses, and the way they emotionally react to certain situations. I can tell you something very interesting about myself. Um, okay, I always try to relate personal things to you to give you a better idea of understanding this material here. These zombie stuff has become very popular in the last, Jesus, I don't know. I don't know how many years that zombie show, The Walking Dead, has been around. 5 years? Is it more? I don't know, but zombies kind of made a comeback. I'll just be safe. I'll say 5 years of. I mean, even Korea had the Train to Busan about zombies. So zombies kind of made a return. Now, when I was in my 20s, zombies were pretty hot. There was this uh, the Dawn of the Dead and different kind of some will be actually called zombie. And so, as a young guy, and young guys like to, if you haven't figured it out by now, like young guys, American guys like to take the date to a horror movie so that they can get scared and then they can hug them and then maybe sneak a kiss in there, right? That's the purpose of horror movies for young American people. So another thing is you want to see the more grosser things you can, right? Oh, what's the next? This zombie movie has to outdo the other one. Is they going to eat the guy's ear? Or I remember one zombie movie, the guy was screaming and they pulled him apart. So one zombie pulled his legs and started eating his legs, and the other guy pulled the top half, and it's still yelling. And I hope you choke on my legs. Crazy stuff. So in my 20s, like you guys, I was all into that stuff. Now that I'm much older than my 20s, the last thing I want to see is a zombie movie. I've never seen an episode of The Walking Dead. I really have no interest in seeing a zombie movie. You know, the only thing I can reason why is that, so people like my age are probably not a good audience for a zombie movie, right? It's because my guess is that, you're young and you're wild and you don't think you can die and you're always going to look like you're 23 years old. But as you get older and you age and people have died in your life, family members, and you've had sadness in your life, and you've seen some bad things, like I've seen some bad car crashes and what have you. It's like that's okay. I don't want to see, four zombies eat a man starting from his chest or whatever. So be careful of your audience, right, in the different situations and their weak points and how they react emotionally to situations. Okay, next, a character is born. If they don't appear out of the blue, which means out of nowhere, uh, characters can be created from your past, your present, your likes and your dislikes, your fears, your job, newspaper accounts, your friends, your family, just about anyone or anything. A character could have your husband's way of lining up the dishes by size before washing them. Another character could have your mother-in-law's arrogant or egotistical demeanor or way of acting. Your good friend's love of bubblegum flavored ice cream could be another character's dietary downfall or weakness. Let your mind range freely as you create and develop characters. Next, well, what I want to say there is that you'll see a lot of guys that do a movie role and then it's a success. And then they'll get interviewed and they'll say, who did you base the character on? And he said, well, half of it was like my brother who's crazy and does these crazy things. And the other half of the character was based on this one friend, that I had that also did crazy things, but in a different way. So they always base it on someone or a group of people mixed together. So now we'll go to character explorations or exploring your character. Fictional, okay, which means not truthful. Characters can be compiled or put together by focusing on people outside your usual turf or the people you hang out with or where you live. People watching can be a great way to develop ideas for characters. That's why a lot of writers, let's say they hang out at a mall, or if you're familiar with Glendale's Americana, people will sit out there and have a cocktail or eat a sandwich or whatever, and watch people go by and then get ideas from either the nice way or strange ways people do or act, right? When you see someone who intrigues you, try giving this person an identity. That's interesting. What's this guy's name? This is about your character, not a real person. Where was he born? Does he speak with an accent? Has something just happened to make him smile that way? Does he keep adjusting his tie because he's nervous? When I was a young guy, a lot of guys my father's age, I don't know why, but they would talk to each other and stand there with their right hand in their pocket. I don't know why the pocket always had a lot of coins in there. And then talk and at the same time jingle the change so it made a noise. And there was a number of men like that they spoke to my father and they're like schlink, schlink, schlink. Well, Leon, it's schlink, schlink, schlink. Uh, Guys don't do that anymore, but that's something you could put in your writing. Does he always wear dark colored clothes? Is he meeting someone he hasn't seen in a long time? Does he walk so gracefully because he's an athlete or like an ex-dancer? Or do you think you would like him as a friend? That's another angle. You might write about someone and you write these things and you might not like this person. So that could be put in your writing. Imagine personalities and traits by playing I wonder. That's a game. I wonder if, and what if while studying passers-by. You could even have imaginary conversations with them. It's a great way to develop characters. So what they're saying here is like, again, you're at the Americana, you're having a macchiato, sitting in the patio on a nice, pretty summer day. It's a Saturday, and some big muscular guy's walking proudly in front of the movie theater there. So you say, I wonder, or what if the guy ran into someone bigger than him and more muscular? Would he still walk proudly, or would he look at him like a normal sized guy and then go, "Oh, hi, excuse me, sir," right? And then you can imagine conversations with him. How would this guy sound, or what would he talk about, right? I don't think he would talk about growing flowers and having a potpourri. It might not be true, but I mean, as a general thing, he probably wouldn't. Is he going to talk about football? And then this helps you develop intriguing character, mysterious character. Okay, now we move on to conflict, and that's the mover, baby. Conflict's what moves the story along. Characters travel down the road projected by the plot. In other words, they will do whatever they do according to the plot that you've written, which is like a map. So it says here a string of events that takes them from the beginning of the story to the end. And to let you know too, getting back to stand-up comedians like the gag men, the way they sound and deliver their jokes, a regular person might say, "Guys, this guy just has a talent for being funny." He just says things that come off the top of his head. But you better believe it. All those guys, they write out, it's not a plot, but it's similar to a plot. And they write out the events of their jokes, and they put them in a different order. Maybe the funniest one last, an opener in the beginning. And they try to time it for whatever time they have to stay up there, 15 minutes to 30 minutes. And they've practiced it and know it so well that it looks like it, sounds like it. That's a guy that's just standing up there, or a woman just saying funny things off the top of their head. But they have planned it out using similar technique like you're writing here, right? This is all to help you. So continuing from up here, right top, like road builders, Authors connect section after section of their concept so that characters can travel along them to reach their destination. But usually that traveling doesn't go smoothly. Why not? Conflicts. Just like in our life, we plan a smooth life and we're going to go to the Bahamas and we're going to go here and there. And then suddenly, I got this toothache, and you think you've got one cavity. And he says, well, actually, you've got three cavities and they're so bad, we're going to have to do three root canals. Now, all of a sudden, you're looking at $5,000 of a bill and all this uh, dentist chair time. It's like, uh-oh, forget the Bahamas now. This conflict just destroyed it, right? So here we go. Conflicts, head-on collisions of events, often beset, which means they have plenty of problems, and besiege, constantly attacking the protagonist, the main person of your story, or you if we're talking about your life. These conflicts can be internal with the main character or external, issues the main character has with another person, animal, like what was that movie Tom Hanks did years ago with that red dog? He had nothing but problems. He had issues with that red dog that kind of adopted him. Object of force, like the force of time. People will write about maybe aging, getting older, and how their life is changing and it's getting more difficult to deal with it, or problems that people have with the government or with nature. You could be a person in Florida and write about storms and how they've destroyed your boat and then attacked your house and things like that, right? These are the conflicts. Another little fact, when adding conflict to your story, don't overload characters with too many quirks or problems. You don't want to add so many conflicts that readers and characters can't catch their breath. And that's a good point. Sometimes you get involved in giving them quirks with a strange personality or too many problems. Then people start worrying in the story. I don't think they're going to answer all these problems or fix them. You have to have just enough to make the characters interesting and move the story, but not too much where your main point is not being thought about anymore. Instead of, okay, he's got four more problems he has to fix. You don't want to do that. In Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, Heathcliff is continually at war with his feelings, with his love for Catherine and his jealousy of those she gives her heart to. That's pretty rough stuff. In L. Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz, the trigger event is a tornado that takes Dorothy far from her home and leaves her to face a Tin Man, Scarecrow, a witch, a wizard, and a lion as she attempts to return home. Okay? Conflict is the basis of the drama in a story and what pulls readers in emotionally and gets them to turn the page. A well-paced, well-developed plot should contain enough instances of conflict, just enough though, too much, to produce tension and emotion and a continual escalation, but also times of calm when things go more smoothly. I would have to say in the movies that I've seen in the last 10 years or more, Quentin Tarantino's movies are about the best that have conflict, that produce tension and emotion, and they just escalate. You think, okay, this is the end of the tension in this scene, and then it gets worse. And then you say, okay, that's got to be the end, right? And then it gets worse, right? He's really good at doing that, and do it when you least expect it. And you can try to do those things too in your writing. Now you want to talk about point of view. Author and poet Frances Mays believes that apart from the use of significant detail, there is no more important skill, no more, pay attention, for a writer of fiction to grasp or hold on to the control of point of view. Important there, intent. Any story that's told is told from a particular perspective, which we went over a little bit earlier. While you're planning and shaping your story, that perspective may be obvious. For example, if you're going to create a memoir, you'll be writing the story from your own point of view. But some ideas present a question. Who is going to be telling this story? If there are three main characters involved, which of them will be providing the information? Will all three take turns? Or will an external narrator speak to the reader? Who tells the story and how it is told have a major effect on the tone of a story and greatly affect its meaning. Since readers can receive information from only one viewpoint at a time, in order to understand the situation and identify the characters, you need to decide which point of view will work best with your story and intended audience. So we go back to your audience again. There are three main points of views to choose from. Remember that magic number, 3. First person. The first person point of view is used when an external narrator or character in the story tells it. This viewpoint incorporates the words I, me, my, mine, we, us, and our, and provides information that only the narrator or the particular character would reasonably have. Telling a story from a personal point of view, the narrator or character can observe all the action, tell readers about his or her reactions and feelings. Next, second person. This point of view uses the words you and your to tell the story. With the second person, the reader is actually addressed and involved in the action. You walk up the stairs and turn to face the window. You see the frail boy walking carefully up the street. While the second person viewpoint does engage the reader, it can be difficult to carry through a long piece of fiction. It's an excellent choice, though, for several nonfiction formats such as training manuals and travel guides. Third person. There are actually two different third person points of view. Oh, wow. Third person limited tells the story through one character's perspective, and the third person omniscient speaks through an all-seeing eye. Omniscient, which can see all. In both cases, the speaker is not part of the story. Major difference from the first person point of view. The third person narrator uses the words he, his, him, her, hers, they, them, their, and theirs. And I think that means we're done with the creative writing portion. Okay. Now on to the poetry. Now this is where I really had to cut some information. I only have to give you the most important things for sonnets, odes, and ghazals. A lot of the other stuff is just unnecessary fluff, or who did this in Europe 500 years ago, and we don't need to go over that. You just need to know what these are. Folks. Still trying to get you out of here under the hour. Okay, 3 poetic forms with a long history in Europe and the Middle East literature are the sonnet, the ode, and the ghazal. Because they began as closed-form poems, they may strike you as formal in appearance and tone. Modern-day poetics, however, allow you to be more playful with the rules. Feel free to explore these forms in any way you like. Little songs. Okay, in Italian, the word sonnet literally means little song. This translation is actually a good way to start a discussion about this popular form. Should I have a question on the final? What does sonnet mean? Little song? No, maybe I won't. Who knows? Too easy. Like a song, the traditional sonnet depends upon meter and rhyme to give energy to the lines. Also, like a song, the traditional sonnet resolves itself by the final line. So all problems are answered by the end. It does not leave you with any open-ended questions to ponder, which means to think about. Very popular style in Europe. The Americans to have an answer at the end of the movie. The man saved the girl. The couple got married. The policeman killed the bad guy. Europe has these endings where it's like, well, what actually happened? Or, I don't know. Did the guy die, or what's going to happen? So uh, these do not leave you, these sonnets, with any open-ended questions to think about. The sonnet had been a popular form in Italy for at least 200 years. See, this is where I'm telling you there's a lot of this history and names you don't need to know, so I try to give you the minimum here. Before its introduction into English poetics during the Renaissance, the early English sonneteers discovered that the original sonnet form, as the Italians developed it, was hard to reproduce in English. A lot of things are very difficult to reproduce from one culture to another. They have a certain flavor in their own culture. A lot of popular foreign movies. America was quick to put an American actor and do their own American style of the movie, whether it's Little Nikita from France or, you know, Chinese Hong Kong gangster movie that they remake here, and they bomb. They're just terrible. They don't have the feel from their original countries, right? All right. So it says here the Italian language has only been, but in English, so it has a lot of interpretations. Rhyming does not come as easily, right? There's many ways to rhyme, basically what's blocked here, right? The English sonneteers therefore developed their own rhyme pattern to accommodate the difficulties raised by the language. So they couldn't completely replicate what the Italians did because the English language doesn't have that capability. So they developed their own form. Okay? So now we'll move on to odes. Odes. Oh, Punky. I don't think you guys ever saw the Punky Brewster show. Old guy always used to say, oh, Punky. While the sonnet is an old form, the ode dates back even further. See, this history stuff, Jesus. Forms of the ode appeared in ancient Greek plays. So the first one we're talking about medieval Europe, now we're talking about ancient Greece. And were originally sung by the chorus between the scenes. Yes, it's sung, lo, lo, lo. These old forms involved a three-part structure: the strophe, during which the chorus danced to the left, the antistrophe, during which the chorus danced to the right, and the epode, during which the chorus stood still. Okay, dance to the left, dance to the right, and stay still. It reminds me, like when I was in Japan. Let me see if I get this right. When you're in Tokyo and you go up an escalator and there's people behind, you're standing in the middle, right? And people want to pass you. In Tokyo, you move to the left and let people pass, which I was doing in Yokohama, and my friend pulled me to the right and said, in Yokohama, we move to the right. I let people pass. I don't know what the issue is there, but same thing with here. Another form of the ode was performed at public events, such as athletic games. One of the most famous poets of antiquity, which means of old times, Pindar, sang odes to the victors of wrestling matches, chariot races, foot races, and other events. Aside from glorifying the athlete, his family, and his trainer, Pindar was careful to speak highly of the gods and of the athlete's city of origin, where that person was born. Pindar also followed the three-part structure for the ode found in the Greek plays. The length of the stanzas and the lines could vary from poem to poem, but usually within the same poem, the strophe and the antistrophe had the same stanza form and number of lines, while the epode had a different form and number. Don't worry about that, that will not be on the test. Ode form. As you have surmised mean to guess, the form of the ode is not nearly as strict as that of the sonnet, the form. Generally speaking, though, the ode should be long enough to be read aloud to an audience without exceeding a length of about 2 pages. As far as content, you should offer praise for or a meditation on your subject, whether it's the President of the United States or a caterpillar. Okay, so I guess they have the same amount of importance, right? Biden is as important as a caterpillar. I hope no one with a big foot tries to step on him. For this reason, the ode is usually a lyric, and it can center on imagery, emotion, or argument. So those are the basics of those things that you need to know. You will not be asked to reproduce these things in no way. I'd have to read about 5 more pages. Just so I have to give you the information. So, hey, do you know what a ghazal is? And you say, oh yeah, I think that's a sandwich like a falafel. Yeah, it goes good with hummus. It's like, no, that's not what they're talking about. Okay, am I right? Oh, we got a little more reading here. The chazal, yes, forgot about that. The ghazal, pronounced like guzzle, guzzle, developed in Persia, now Iran, sometime during the 10th century. Originally written as a song of praise for a king, the form acquired other subjects over the centuries, among the most common being women and wine. I wonder if women and wine go together. As such, the subject matter has been somewhat erotic. Okay. I'm a minor, so I got to be careful with what I read. In modern times, however, the ghazal or chazal has been used as a song of protest with highly charged political messages. Appropriately, the ghazal was adopted into American poetics during the 1960s. Don't worry, I won't ask you that either. Formal requirements. The requirements for a ghazal, as it is still composed in the Middle East, make the poem quite a challenge in English. Same thing as the ode, mostly because of the rhyme scheme. The entire poem is composed of 5 to 12 couplets. All of the couplets follow a strict syllable count, 19 for each line. The first couplet of the poem must rhyme, and the last line of every following couplet must rhyme with this first stanza. Hence, or so, for a 5-stanza ghazal, you have the following rhyme scheme: A, B, A, C, A, D, A, E, A. Don't worry, you won't be asked to reproduce that. Okay. In addition to the end rhymes, all the rhyming lines in a ghazal have an internal rhyme. So somewhere in the middle of those lines, you must have a word in the middle that rhymes with the word on the end. Therefore, in a 5-couplet ghazal, you have to include 12 words that rhyme. Despite the complex rhyme scheme, each couplet in the poem is a self-contained unit. Every couplet develops its own image or idea, almost as if it is a separate poem. The last couplet contains the poet's signature, aka her real name or pen name, that's the name they write under, and perhaps a message of a personal nature. Okay, on to the questions. Get out of here early. 1. What should you do after you write your purpose down? So you're going to be one of my funny students. You should start dancing and then sing a rap song. Make a potato salad. No. 2. What are the 3 steps in the writing? They're in the bold black ink after purpose, because purpose is in the black bold ink too. So what are the next 3 that head the little paragraphs. 3, if you are writing fiction, what kind of characters should you create? Characters that you can easily forget. Okay, no. 4, describe the road characters travel down. Again, by using this, you should be able to find the answer. Just look for the road. 5, list the 3 main points of view. There's the woman's point of view, the feminist point of view, and the woman's point of view, right? No, not true. So you can see there's no man's point of view, right? Okay, only 3 questions in the poetry, so I'm giving you 8 instead of the normal 10. We read less reading, so again, this is my gift to you. What does a traditional sonnet depend on? Again, don't be silly. It depends on gasoline. No. 2, how long should an ode be? It's stated there exactly how long it should be. 3, what is the ghazal or chazal poem composed of? Again, I'm looking for silly things. It's made of sawdust. No. All right. So we hit the stop share. Okay, so I should be back. Hey, all right. So that's it for our last lesson of the, what is this, the fall quarter. All right. And good luck to you. And we'll see you the next time when I'll be delivering the test. All right. So take care.